Good day, everyone. I am Elaine May Kinol from BS Ed Social Studies 4, and for today's discussion, I will be reporting about assessment in the classroom, specifically formative and summative assessment. This topic is under Unit 2, which focuses on the practical foundations of teaching, including learning theories, classroom management, instructional strategies, and assessment. Before we proceed, let me first present our learning objectives. At the end of the discussion, the students will be able to explain formative and summative assessment by describing their purpose and main characters. Second, analyze the similarities and differences between formative and summative assessment by creating a Venn diagram. And lastly, evaluate the importance of both types of assessment by writing a reflection explaining why they are important for effective learning. So, by the end of this report, I hope we can clearly understand the difference between formative and summative assessment and why teachers need both. Before discussing the two types, let us first understand what classroom assessment means. So, what is classroom assessment? Classroom assessment is the process of gathering information about what learners know and can do. In simple words, assessment helps teachers know whether their students are learning or not. It also helps teachers monitor the progress of their learners and make decisions about teaching and learning. For example, if a teacher notices that most students are having difficulty understanding a lesson, the teacher can change the teaching strategy and or explain the topic again. Assessment can help during learning and after learning. And this leads us to our two main types, which are formative and summative assessment. Let us begin with formative assessment. Formative assessment is an assessment that supports learning during the teaching learning process. In simple terms, it happens while students are still learning, and its main purpose is to check whether learners understand the lessons and to identify areas where they still need improvement. It also gives teachers information that they can use to adjust their instruction. For example, if a teacher notices that many students do not understand a particular concept, the teacher can stop and explain it again. Some examples of formative assessments are questioning, short quizzes, exit tickets, discussions, observations, and lastly, practice activities. So, an easy way to remember formative assessment is formative for learning. It helps students improve while they are still in the process of learning. Let's look at an example. Suppose a teacher is discussing the water cycle. Halfway the lesson, the teacher asks the students to explain evaporation and condensation. The teacher then notices that several students are confused about condensation. What should the teacher do? Instead of simply moving on, the teacher explains the concept again and gives the students another short activity. This example of formative assessment because the teacher used the students' responses to identify their difficulty and improve the instruction. So formative assessment is not simply about getting a score. It is about asking What are my students understanding and what do I need to do to help them learn better? Now let us move to summative assessment. Summative assessment is an assessment that measures learning after a period of instruction. Unlike summative assessment, which happens during learning, summative assessment usually happens after a lesson, unit, quarter, or course. Its results may be used for grading, reporting, or evaluating learners' achievement. Examples include unit tests, quarterly examinations, final examinations, projects, and performance tasks. An easy way to remember this is summative, summarized learning. It tells us what learners have achieved after a certain period of learning. For summative assessment, we can think of a teacher who has already finished teaching a unit about a water cycle. After completing the unit, the teacher gives an assessment to determine how much the students have learned. The results can be used to evaluate the learners' achievements and, when applicable, contribute to their grades. So, the main question in summative assessment is, what have my students learned after the instruction? Now, we have an important question. Are formative and summative assessments recorded? The answer is both may be recorded, but they are used differently. For formative assessment, teachers may record or document the result to monitor learners' progress and improve instruction. However, under the presentations DepEd K-12 assessment guidance, formative assessment results are not included in the computation of summative grades. For summative assessment, the results are recorded and used to report learners' achievement and may contribute to the computation of grades according to the applicable assessment components. So, the important thing to remember is that the purpose and use of the assessment information are different. The presentation also mentions the DepEd E-Class record templates. These templates are used for computing grades and are consistent with DepEd Order Number 8, Section 2015. This shows that assessment information used for grading is formally recorded. So teachers don't just give assessment randomly. Assessment information is organized and used for specific purposes. Now, here is something very important. Formative and summative assessment are not opposites. They are complementary. According to Dixon and Worrell, formative and summative assessment are complementary, and their main differences often depend on how the assessment information is used. In simple terms, both assessments provide useful information about students. Formative assessment helps improve learning while it's happening, while summative assessment helps us measure and report learning after a period of instruction. So, teachers need both. To summarize our discussion, formative assessment happens during the teaching learning process. It helps teachers check students' understanding, identify difficulties, and improve instructions. On the other hand, summative assessment happens after a period of learning. It measures and reports what learners have achieved. Although they have different purposes, Both are important because they provide useful information about learners' progress. Therefore, teachers should use both formative and summative assessment to support, improve, and measure effective learning. And that ends my discussion about formative and summative assessment. I hope that through this discussion, we were able to understand not only their differences, but also how both types of assessments help teachers and learners. Thank you for listening.